Hey everyone, this is Daniel,
And I'm Jun,
and we are
Korean.
American.
See, I think it's better when you start first.
I don't know why. I
Just
think it's
going
equal.
back and forth, back and forth.
I see. The ping pong.
Yeah.
June,
Yeah.
we're 30 some episodes into this podcast,
Mhm.
comparing Korean and American culture,
Yes.
and shockingly,
hmm
this term has not come up yet.
Which term?
Jung,
Oh, Jeong.
Han, and Jung are
Yeah.
like, at least for Korean Americans,
hmm
it's like number one when you talk about like core Korean culture things, right?
Really?
So.
What
Yeah.
does Jeong mean for you?
Yeah, good question. I wanted to ask you, but I think when I first heard the term Jung, I don't know, I was maybe in college. No, I think it was later than college. It was probably late 2000s,
hmm
right? And it was described to me as the familiarity with which Koreans see each other, right? An instant sense of like connection,
Mm.
deeper than like the history of your relationship, let's say, right?
Mm-mm-mm.
The reason why this resonated so much for me
hmm
is growing up in America as an immigrant,
Mhm.
right? As a third culture kid, this is a, very, I guess, trite thing to say.
Mhm.
It's such a trope at this point, but it really is true, right?
Mm.
Growing up, I felt, I guess, too Korean for Americans,
Mhm.
too American for Koreans, right? It's this third subculture that really was like this Korean American subculture.
Uh-huh.
And anytime I met a Korean American,
hmm
right? And, of course, I grew up in my hometown in Maryland.
Mm.
When I went off to college or, moved to California,
Mm.
it wasn't quite the same.
Mhm.
But whenever I met a Korean American, similar age,
Mm.
I felt this instant connection with them.
Mhm.
It's because we had this shared, I guess, ancestry. Like, I just knew everything I struggled with, thought about my life experience
Mhm.
would resonate with them and be pretty similar with them, right?
Really?
And
Even when you didn't grow up in the same culture?
exactly, right?
Oh.
And as I've grown older, of course, I realized, okay, like LA Korean Americans, its own subculture, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me, like DC, Maryland, Virginia, like that, even Maryland versus Virginia,
Mm.
the subcultures are different,
Mhm.
but still, universally, I
Mm.
feel so comfortable and at ease
Mm.
with Korean Americans.
Mm.
And
And
anyway, like that's what Jung meant to me when I first heard it.
you define that as Jeong.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because that's a very unique situation where I guess it's kind of like you met your tribe
Mm-hmm.
a little bit.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a part of Jeong. But Jeong means a different thing in Koreans living in Korea because we meet each other every time.
Yeah.
But I do feel that it's related to a sense of connection
Yeah.
and also hospitality that comes from that connection.
Yeah. So Jung, I'm gonna June. June, let me read this definition of Jung from knowingkorea.org. Ask any Korean to name a unique aspect of Korean culture, and there's a good chance they will tell you all about the concept of Jung.
Mhm.
There's a Chinese character here too.
Mm.
Put simply, Jung is the warm feeling of attachment felt between people who share a close relationship. Of course, Koreans are not the only who feel attachment to those close to them.
Mm.
So what is it about Jung that makes it so uniquely Korean?
Mhm.
For a start, compared to individualistic Western cultures,
Mm.
in Korea, the sentiment is based on the idea of collective social responsibility.
Mm.
And so I think it goes on to describe an anecdote, but in this sense, Jung can be described as intimate and warm feelings arising from one's relationship with another person and the desire to do something for them.
Mm.
Like an old grandmother piling plate upon plate of food in front of their grandchild to the point they feel they might burst. I mean, that resonates with me, but I will also say that feels pretty universal. Yeah.
That's a very accurate description. I don't think I could have explained that better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think it's not just hospitality, but it's related to the sense of like being connected
Yeah.
as a family or as a nation
Mm-hmm.
or as a nationality.
Yeah. So do you feel, I guess, I don't know, how are you introduced to the concept of Jung and like what does it mean to you today, I guess?
I feel like Jeong is a word that every Korean person hears growing up all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I can only represent my generation. So I understand what it is, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
But it also feels like a very outdated term.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people in modern Korea try to challenge that term, kind of thinking that it might be a little bit of BS.
Yeah.
And it also comes with a cost sometimes, like Jeong, is because Korean society, again, is becoming more and more individualistic.
Yes. Yeah.
And it feels like a burden if someone tries to act on that concept, right?
It feels old fashioned and outdated.
Or like you feel like too much strings are attached.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one good example of that is in the workplace. Traditionally, in a Korean workplace, JD, they would describe your workplace environment as a 가족 같은 회사.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. That I can already see, even in America, that'd be like a trigger.
Yeah. Like a family-like
Yeah.
company.
Yeah.
And Korean people always take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
And almost nowadays, they don't put that anymore.
Uh-huh.
But if they do, it's immediately blacklisted.
I want to challenge that a bit because I don't know if we talked about it on our pod before,
Mm-hmm.
but in Korean companies,
Mm-hmm.
legally, you're not allowed to be fired.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think historically employment has been thought of as, oh, I'm hiring this person potentially for life.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, it really does feel a bit more like family. Like, hey, we're in it together,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's no, neither of us, I can't choose to fire you easily,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so in that sense, it really does feel more like family. Whereas in a Western culture,
Mm-hmm.
we always eye roll when
Mhm.
people are like, oh, like, I treat my coworkers as my family.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's nothing there. Like, very clearly, it's a contract
Yeah.
where I do work for you and you pay me money.
Yeah,
right? There's no, I guess, lifelong tie together,
Mhm.
right?
Mm.
Whereas in Korean companies, it does feel like that's there. So I don't know. In a sense, I could imagine like a Korean company does feel like more Jung-like than American companies.
I don't know. It definitely might have something to do with I guess the form of contract
Yeah.
and how robust it is. But it's also just the way that you treat your colleagues.
Mm,
I think modern Korean people think that it should be different from how your family treats you.
I see. Okay.
And there are a lot of, I guess, side effects that comes from treating your colleagues as your family.
I see.
Like getting too much into your personal life
Mm-hmm.
and like, all that thing.
I get it. Yeah. Interesting. Jun, you're not the first person I've heard say
Mm-hmm.
that, modern Koreans feel like the concept of Jung
Mm-hmm.
and also Han, but we won't get into that today,
Yeah.
feel like very outdated and foreign.
Yeah.
So I guess like I agree with you. It's probably tied to this sense that Korea is becoming more individualistic
Mhm.
over time,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, I mean, do you think that's a good direction? Because I remember one anecdote you shared that I think for me is very on the nose maybe about Jung.
Mm-hmm.
But you said when you were coming home and let's say your parents went around, you wouldn't think twice about going to a neighbor's, right? And like they would like welcome you in and feed you as if you were their own kid, right?
Yeah.
To be clear, growing up, like I went over to my friends' houses a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but I definitely never felt like that level of what I'm hearing you say as closeness and like open door in a sense, right?
Mm.
Like I wouldn't go to a friend's house if my friend wasn't there, if
Mhm.
that made sense.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think Korean people think that the concept of Jung is a little bit outdated because it doesn't apply to Korean society anymore.
Mm.
And they don't understand it as much as the older generations do. And it always comes with, again, it's just not one simple thing. It comes with a lot of baggage together
Mm.
that you have to share your personal life a lot, and then you're too integrated with the other person. And now Korean society became, again, as you mentioned, very individualistic. So you are you and I am I.
Mm.
And we're more in like a competition state. So, right?
Yeah.
I think the reason why it worked back then is because, again, back then everyone was just poor.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people who are a little bit more well off and
Yeah.
some are not, but
Yeah.
then the difference wasn't that big.
Mm.
So everyone was, I think, there was a sense of camaraderie.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was in this together.
Mm-hmm.
We're not that different.
Yeah.
So I relate to you.
Yeah.
You relate to me. And again, the connectiveness, right? And so there's a little bit of hospitality, like I can be kind to you and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And through the years, like the 50 years of like the miracle of the Han River and how exponentially Korea grew economically,
Mm-hmm.
it's only natural that the wealthier became much more wealthier, and then it left the trail of the poor people, and the economic status difference is so dramatic nowadays in Korean society.
Yeah.
It feels like there's the sense of camaraderie dwindled a lot.
Yeah.
And so your neighbors aren't your neighbors, they're your
Your competition.
It's competition.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. So in a sense, okay, I think we're saying what I'm hearing is one of the origins of Jung
Mhm.
is like being homogenous,
Mm.
right? And you're saying one way in which Korea is becoming less homogenous is basically how rich people are.
Yeah.
It's harder to feel Jung for your fellow Korean when you see them doing better than you, right? Or being much richer, wealthier. And now you feel more jealousy than Jung, right? Is that
Yeah,
it?
because Jung again is related to how connected you feel to
Yeah.
that person. And if your economic status is so different,
Yeah.
how can you feel connected?
Let me think. How do I feel about that? Obviously, I think the more money you have in America, you do feel, there's a term like, oh, they're just disconnected,
Mm-hmm.
right? They've lost touch with reality.
Mm.
Yeah, I can see that, but I don't know. Yeah, it's sad.
I don't know. I think there's just one way of interpreting
Yeah,
this. It can't be that simple. It's
Yeah.
very complicated. There are a lot of factors that play into why Jung isn't a big thing
Yeah.
anymore in Korea. But I think, economic status is definitely one of those reasons.
June, let me share an anecdote.
Yeah.
I want to hear what you think, because this to me is my Jung.
Mm-hmm.
I for whatever reason, like my maternal grandmother, she raised me again. I have to talk about her a lot at some point.
Yeah.
But she raised me while both my parents were working.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, I love Korean grandmas. Like really, I just like always want to help them, do what I can whenever I see them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one time this grandma had like a big, like heavy thing of groceries at the bottom of a staircase.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like running out of my way to try to like take this thing and help her.
Mm-hmm.
And she was so grateful at the at the top, right? She really was.
Yeah.
But for me, my first thought was like, there's hundreds of other people around.
Mm-hmm.
None of them thought to try to help this grandma with her grocery bag.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's really sad.
Yeah.
But would you call that Jung? Like just this desire to help someone out? Just like, I'm never going to see them again, right? Like, why did I do that? It's just, well, I feel like a closeness to want to help this person. It's almost like a desire to help your fellow human, I guess. Is that also Jung to you?
I think that's more humanity. Jung is
Okay.
part of humanity,
Yeah.
but I think it's more specific.
Mm.
Maybe that is. I don't know. Would you have helped out a white lady
In America?
In America, and would you feel that that's Jung?
Interesting. I'd like to say I would help out,
Mm-hmm.
but I would feel less comfortable helping out, if that makes sense. I feel like it's more culturally, for whatever, my interpretation of culture in Korea
Mm-hmm.
is that it's more acceptable for me to help that person.
Mm-hmm.
In America, the reason I wouldn't, I think, is because I suspect they might be thinking, oh, what's the ulterior motive? Like, are they trying to steal my thing?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't want to make them feel tense, right? There's not an expectation that someone might help them. So
That's the
therefore,
exact
they wouldn't
reason
help.
why the other people in Korea didn't help out the lady.
They're afraid the lady might think that they're robbing them.
Yeah.
No,
No,
come
I'm
on.
not even. I'm not even joking.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that true? I don't feel that in Korea, but you're telling me that's what people might feel.
A little sense of that I think exists.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I see. So it's that, I don't even know what that is. It's more less trusting in your fellow neighbor that they want what's good for you, right?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
just less trust between people.
I think so.
Wow. Okay.
But what you described
Yeah.
right now about the feeling that you feel when you're helping out a white lady,
Yeah.
I think it resonates with me.
Huh.
Why, like young Korean, like modern Korean people wouldn't do that.
I really don't understand. Yeah. So you're afraid the grandma might think something like
They might
not
be
trust
afraid
you.
of you.
They might
yeah.
be afraid of you.
Yeah.
Really?
Like, why are you doing this to me?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I still do it. I don't think I've ever received that reaction.
Like, for instance, even you, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you're carrying a really heavy thing,
Yeah.
and then someone comes and say, like, "Can I carry it with you?"
Yeah.
I would be grateful. That's the majority of what I'm feeling, but
Yeah.
a little part of me is like,
Oh, what's gonna happen next?
Yeah.
Are they gonna ask for a tip
Yeah,
or something?
Not
Yeah.
a tip, but I don't know. Can I trust this person?
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are you
Okay.
doing this to me?
Yeah.
Right. A little bit of that.
Okay. This is similar to a theme for from our neighbors episode.
Yeah.
Where everyone just wants to like live their own private life, keep to themselves,
Mhm.
like not bother others, not be bothered by
Mhm,
others.
mhm.
Yeah.
I think it's just also the reason that there's a disconnection between generations and Jung is because their way of thinking is so different, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I love Korean grandmas as well.
Yeah.
Like they're so adorable.
Yeah.
And I understand the adorableness, but they also come with something else, right? So you don't want to be too related, right? Let's say I talk.
You keep implying though. I really don't get it. What else did they come with?
See, like let's say I'm in the subway,
Yeah.
or like I'm in the bus. I sat next to an old lady. She starts talking to me.
Yeah.
And it's very endearing.
Uh-huh.
Blah 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 blah. And then she starts saying like, "Why aren't you married?
Oh,
Like,
I
do you have
see.
kids?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, how old are you?
Yeah.
Like, how much money do you make?
Yeah.
Blah blah blah." And I'm like, I know that they're not saying that as in a bad intention,
Yeah.
but it's just such a different way of thinking and acting
I see.
that I started feeling uncomfortable.
Okay.
It's those kind of things.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. I think it's endearing. Like when I was literally gonna say,
Yeah.
June, what else could they say? The only other thing they'll ask is like, "Oh, are you single? So I can set you up with my granddaughter." Like literally, that's the first thing I expect them to say.
Yeah. Those are the things.
And you find that to be annoying rather than like, I guess, endearing. I don't know.
More annoying than
Yeah.
endearing.
To the point where you don't even want to start a conversation in case it leads to that.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think there's just like a different expectation, I think. Yeah.
Is it because you feel like you're a little bit foreigner?
Maybe. I don't
Like
know.
I can
Yeah.
imagine myself going to the States
Mm-hmm.
and then talking to an old white lady
Mm.
and she starts saying that. I would just think it's very interesting,
yeah.
endearing. Yeah. Oh, she says this.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting that like old white ladies
Yeah.
think that way. Blah blah blah. I think I could be a little bit detached from the context.
Yeah, yeah.
And be more of like an observer.
I think that's it. I think there's something there.
Yeah, yeah,
Which is weird, right? Like I feel more ability to be close
yeah.
when I'm detached. Yeah.
I think that's key.
Yeah, interesting.
Even with your family, they say it's more healthy to maintain. They say a healthy distance.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you can maintain that healthy distance with people in Korea.
Yeah.
In some way.
I see.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring this up too because I found it really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I came to Korea, like I said, I feel what I define as Jung for
Mhm.
my fellow Korean Americans,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't feel Jung with Koreans. Isn't that weird?
Oh, you only feel Jung with Korean Americans
Yeah.
or Korean old ladies.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it's not Jung then for the Korean old halmonis, but I don't feel any closeness with Koreans because we don't have any shared culture,
Mhm.
shared history, shared
Mhm.
value system, or anything,
Mm-hmm.
right? And another big thing I realized, Jun, I feel like some Jung with you,
Mm-hmm.
not only because we were coworkers. I think a big part of it is you speak English and we
Mhm.
can communicate.
Yeah.
I know that I can't communicate deeply
Mhm.
with Koreans. That language barrier like prevents that.
Mm.
And so for me, I think I feel Jung for anyone that has like, I would say traditional, like
Mhm.
1970s Korean values
Yeah.
that I can communicate with in English. I feel that Jung with them though. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I want to help them out like unnaturally. Like there's nothing in it for me. There's no history. Like,
Yeah.
but why do I want to help them? Yeah.
That's true. So again, Jung has a strong sense of feeling connected.
Yeah.
It's not only about just being Korean together.
Yeah.
It's the connectiveness, right?
It's a shared value system and I
Shared
guess the
value
ability to communicate.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a bit of a tangent too, but I think have felt similar Jung. I realized,
Mhm.
Meeting people from all over the world, I started to realize there's a couple other cultures
Mm.
that I think are really similar to Koreans.
Mm.
One was, I think, the Israeli culture. The other one was Taiwanese.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was another one. It was Lebanon too. But anyway, I think I realized a few things, right? These are all countries that have maybe similar history with Korea.
Have been suppressed by some
Yeah,
other-
like
yeah.
militarily or somehow like either colonized or
Yeah.
like heavily suppressed,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
they're always at threat of war.
Mm-hmm.
And you know that I think that breeds what like a very closeness with family. They
Mhm.
really prioritize family.
Mm-hmm.
Education seems to be like really deeply ingrained and valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that comes out from like, oh, maybe they were poor, or maybe
Mhm.
they were oppressed by you know
Mhm.
other stronger countries in
Mhm.
the past. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I just thought that was interesting, right?
That's
This
very
is this
interesting.
shared common history
Mm-hmm.
that breeds like a similar set of values
Mm-hmm.
and a similar sense of like you know I guess closeness and similarity
Mm-hmm.
culturally to each other. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
It is very interesting that you also, because that you mentioned Taiwanese and not Chinese, right?
No, yeah, I don't feel that with mainlanders.
Because they're ethnically and language wise very similar,
hmm
but their demeanors are very different.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I think you're on point to that.
yeah.
Interesting.
So let's say I guess historical feeling of Jeong today might feel outdated for modern Koreans.
Mm-hmm.
But do you feel a closeness like this Jeong with other, I guess, let's say people your similar age and your similar situation, like your generation?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel Jeong with them? Like we're in this together, right?
I think there is something underlying, but you don't want to pronounce that too much.
Yeah, why
I
not?
I think in modern culture, it's just a very outdated concept.
Okay.
But it comes out here and there.
Yeah.
For instance, let's say I'm with my friend and we're sharing a slice of cake. I'm just making up a situation,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm cutting a slice of cake to you. And if if the sliver is too thin, I would say, 정없게. There's no 정. Yeah, you have to give me
Oh,
more.
정없게. I
Yeah.
see. That's a term. Okay.
It might be just a terminology,
Yeah.
a way of expressing.
Yeah.
But language determines your thoughts.
It's like what? Giving something better to someone else than taking for yourself? Is that it?
If you're like being too stingy
Uh-huh.
to someone else,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
there's no tongue.
Yeah.
Like, you have to give them-
generosity.
generosity. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
But don't you feel like all the other, again, let's say like Korean men your age, right?
mhm,
You all went through similar stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
similar tragedies,
mhm,
military service together,
mhm,
right? I would imagine this breeds like a really sense of closeness with others. Like even if you meet a stranger, like oh wow, like we get each other, right? We grew up the same way. We have the same whatever, right? It's not true.
I think the sense of Jung is a bit hidden in Korea because you're always there together, living together.
Yeah.
But it's more pronounced when you meet in a foreign context. But if I'm living somewhere and I meet a fellow Korean who's going through the same hardship, right? I might feel a sense of connect. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like when you were 유학생, like
Yeah.
studying abroad,
Yeah.
I'm guessing what 90% of your friends were other Korean 유학생s?
90% of my friends were Korean yuaksings.
Were
you
they?
think?
Yeah.
No.
No. Okay. Okay.
No. Actually, I didn't like Korean people. No, that was not a period. I didn't like Korean people ganging up together, always hanging out together. And my American friends would tell me, make fun of the Korean groups. They expressed them as Korean mafia.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're so insular. They don't try
Yeah.
to let anyone else in. Yeah.
And they don't make friends with anyone else. They
yeah.
just like hang out with each other only. I didn't like that
I see.
much. I didn't want to be a part of that. So a lot of my friends were actually not Koreans.
Mm.
So there's always a sense of like self-hatred,
Yeah.
and then
I get that feeling.
simultaneously for me.
From you. Well,
But I think this is a common Korean
feeling?
Yeah, Korean feeling. Sense of hatredness, but also on the opposite side, sense of connectivity.
mhm.
So it's like a very weird tension.
Yeah. When I, as a Korean American, when I went to college, the 유학생s did, the Korean foreign exchange students, all the students from Korea, they really did hang out closely together.
Yeah.
And I always felt like, oh, I wish I were more Korean so I could hang out with them.
Mm.
Thinking back, I realized though, I really think a lot of it comes down to language.
Mm.
Like maybe you felt the ability to expand outside because your English was just so good, right? I'm guessing compared to your other Korean students, right? So maybe it comes down to that self-loathing over like, oh, I can't speak English well. I'm so embarrassed. Like I'm not going to try. But anyway, I do think language, the ability to communicate, is obviously core to any human relationship. But the feeling of Jung in particular, I don't know if you can have it if you can't communicate effectively with them. Yeah.
On that, I have a very interesting experience that I had when I was traveling. When I was traveling to New York when I was in college. So this was before I went to the States to study. I stayed at a Korean hostel in Manhattan, and I got to talk with the hostel owner, which is obviously Korean. And he lamented about Korean American culture in New York and said that Chinatown is becoming bigger and bigger every year because they help each other out to be more successful, and they have a sense of like neighborhood and all that. But he said that Koreatown is becoming smaller and smaller every year because if someone becomes successful, they try to pull them down.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, like report them to the government if
Oh
they're
my
doing
gosh,
anything
yeah.
illegal and all that.
Yeah.
And they said that there's no sense of community anymore.
Yeah.
And I could see that happening, right?
Yeah.
Why did I come here? Oh, yeah, Jeong.
Jeong.
It doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist, yeah. Like hearing you talk about it now, I guess I knew this.
Yeah.
But it really makes it apparent why modern Koreans don't think Jeong exists anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, and it ties back to what I said before about being like thinking that everyone's a competitor. Like you have to pull them down, like in the Nori game. That was the last episode.
I know, yeah. What do you think can anything be done about this? Would you say this is a bad thing or it's just is kind of how it is? And
I don't think it's necessarily a good thing.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything good about it. I wish Korea was more like the 70s in some sense.
I'm just thinking like in America, we talked about this on the neighbor episode. There is always a sense of like neighborliness, right? Getting to know your neighbors, being a good neighbor, right? And I don't know, maybe it's this lack of the feeling of competition because there's a lack of surplus, maybe like everyone's fighting for the same things. Whereas in America, it's just an abundance mindset. There's more than enough to go around for everybody.
Maybe.
Right. So I don't know. There might be a feeling of the better off you are, like the less friends you need. I don't know. That sounds really like weird. But I think that might be true in general. Like it's just harder to form meaningful social connections when you don't need them, right? Like you don't need them to survive.
That's again very Korean way of thinking, right?
Yeah.
Friends, you only make friends because you need them. You have to have use.
Yeah, what's the utility of this friendship or relationship?
Yeah.
And before, when Korea was poor and everyone was struggling, there was a high utility, and that bred Jung, right?
Yeah.
Like we need to help them because they need them to help you,
Yeah.
right? But when you need that less and less, you're more independent, and not relying on your fellow neighbors. Well, it kind of goes away.
But
Makes
I think
sense.
true Jung comes from unconditional, unutilitarian relationship.
Yeah, you're right. You're
Yeah.
right. Utility can't be a part of the Jung conversation that existed before.
Yeah. Like if I go to a restaurant with my parents, the dynamics in which how you interact with the restaurant owner is very different. If they're like similar generation,
Yeah.
my parents would ask like these things that I would never ask to a restaurant owner, and I feel embarrassed in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Like, wow, Mom, why would you ask
Yeah.
that?
Why are you doing this? Yeah.
But then she responds like, and I can feel the restaurant owner light up, right? Oh, like they're having a conversation,
Yeah.
and I thought it's like so super interesting. It's just a different way of interacting with people.
You probably felt like, oh, my parents are asking too personal things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but
Like,
then
why do you ask where this kimchi came from? Like,
yeah.
like why do you ask how you make this whatever this dish, right? But then I can feel that they're clicking together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even in public transportation, like old people, they start talking to random strangers.
Yeah.
They can have a conversation. It's so weird, right?
Oh, weird to you. It feels very
Yeah,
natural to me. Yeah.
Oh, really? To you?
I guess
because that's more American.
American, yeah. I'm still shocked that you don't feel this Jung with your fellow generation. I thought at least that would exist, to be honest. Yeah. But maybe like from, through the education system and everything, you've been taught to compete with your generation. It's just like, how do you get away from that, right?
Yeah. It's different from, I don't know if I specifically feel the competition.
Yeah.
It's just such a overarching force of things that I can't help. I don't know.
Okay. What about your military group, like your military service group?
I didn't go to military.
Oh, you did something though. You had like a group, no? Your
No,
class?
I didn't have a group. Oh, I did like the 4 weeks of whatever.
Yeah, but you don't feel any Jung with that group.
I did for the 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And then you know those things where you feel like you're gonna go forever.
Yeah.
And then it only lasts for like a month. we had a 단톡방.
Yeah.
And then I just left the 단톡방.
You left it. Literally left it.
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of aggressive, by the way?
It was.
Like leaving a cookout thread? I feel like people just let it die.
But they were talking about I don't know.
Anyway, yeah. I'm just going through, like, in my life, I feel Jung for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Right? Like my hometown, my high school friends, right? I guess my church group growing up. Even like my the early employees at my company. Like I feel like we went through it together. Like if I just meet a random person from that group, I haven't talked to them in 20 years. It's just going to be like instant bond, right? Even people my year, my generation was probably defined by like 9/11 happening, right? I don't know. I just feel like I can instantly connect with someone. Just talk about, 9/11. Where were you when that happened? Can you believe it's been 20 years, whatever, right? These are just like shared trials and things that like me and my generation in America have gone through. And to me, I think breeds a closeness, but yeah.
You know what that makes me think of? Do you think in like 10 years, let's say 20 years, the whole world would feel a sense of connection through how we went through COVID?
Yeah, I think so. I could see that. Yeah. I mean, of course, it varied so much country to country.
Yeah.
Let me say this, like I suspect everyone in China who went through the really strict lockdowns for 2 years and had like collective trauma, I suspect they would be able to bond over that easily, right? Maybe it needs to be some sort of collective external force or something to tie people together, right, into this shared experience.
Yes.
And Korea just hasn't had that in such a long time, right? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. I also want to stress that it might be a Korean thing, might be an American thing, might be a generational thing, but also it's a very individual thing. So me not feeling a lot of Jung might be also related to my individual character.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. So I don't want to say that I represent the entire nation.
Of course. Okay, I'm still trying to think of things that will trigger Jung for you. I think I have one.
What?
2002 World Cup.
2002 World Cup.
Did you feel Jung with the rest of the country? Like rooting for the soccer team.
Yes, but is that Jeong? I think it's more nationalism.
Okay, but if this is the thing, Koreans don't meet strangers. I was gonna say, if you meet a random Korean at a bar, you're the same age, and you start talking about 2002 World Cup, how awesome that was. Aren't you gonna feel like a closeness and connection with them?
Maybe a little bit. I don't know.
So interesting.
Do you know what 공감대 is?
No.
So I think it's more of a feeling of consensus.
Consensus?
Yeah.
So impersonal.
And not Jeong in particular.
It's so impersonal.
It's like, I understand that.
Oh. Wow. Like, for a nation that I think is like so known for like being dramatic, I think, and like extra. We'll talk about Han at some point in the future. Korea seems so impersonal sometimes, right?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Sometimes, yeah.
Consensus.
Yeah.
Not connection, consensus.
Yeah. That's literally the word that we use.
Wow.
Like 공감대.
And that has the same meaning, right? Just like, we have decided this is the case, or we agree that this is the way.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it.
Consensus.
Oh man, yeah.
But I think consensus, like 공감대, the word has a slight different nuance than consensus, because 감 in 공감대 means feeling.
Oh, okay.
So similar feeling, feeling consensus.
Yeah, but it's translated as consensus.
Yeah.
Anyway, it explains a lot more why I think my parents' generation never smiled, right? Like it's just about survival.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, all right. I think that's it for Jung. Thank you all for listening today as we explored one of I thought the pillars of Korean culture and society.
Yeah.
Maybe ancient.
Yeah, I feel
Jung.
like our listeners can feel a sense of Jung
with us.
with us.
We hope you all can feel that.
Yeah. It's funny that I say that.
Please comment so June can feel a sense of Jung with you as well.
Please do.
And we will continue to explore the differences between Korean and American society together and breathe familiarity. All right. Yeah. See you next week.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
And so now it's harder to feel Jung when, let's say, you see your neighbors being very wealthier or doing better than you.
Yeah.
Very wealthier. I'm becoming such a... Oh my gosh.